subclassing. Something that, until recently, a lot of us would have never expected to be added to the Elder Scrolls Online. But lo and behold, here it is, and with it comes a new level of character freedom that is unparalleled by just about any other MMO you could find. Gone are the days of adhering to a strict class identity, which at one point was one of my favorite aspects of ESO, but now we are instead in an era where you truly have the freedom to create any kind of character you could possibly think up. But with that level of freedom, a question comes to mind. Why? Just why? Is everyone using the same exact skills? What is going on? For a game touting over 3,000 class combinations, we sure are seeing a whole lot of Merciless Resolve and Deep Fissure. I don't understand. Hey team, it's Kuro, and as I'm sure you can tell, I have some pretty mixed feelings about ESO's newest update, and for good reason. Honestly, there is a lot of good and a lot of bad when it comes to the subclassing update in ESO, and today I would just like to take some time to talk with you guys about both the good and the bad. If you enjoy stuff like this, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more in the future. So, in an effort to not be a whiny little brat on the internet, I'm going to start off with the good things that I personally think are really good about the subclassing update, because we all need a little more positivity in our lives, I feel, especially us MMO gamers, because god, the gamer dungeon is a dark, cold place where all happiness goes to die. Anyway.
Nice.
So first and foremost, what I believe the most important question to ask when it comes to a big update like this is simple. Is it fun? Well, when it comes to cross-classing, for me, the easy answer is a resounding yes. Like I mentioned earlier, the freedom to create whatever character you want has given people like me, who love tinkering with builds, a lot to work with and a lot to do, which is great for both the try-hard veterans who have a lot of experience tinkering with builds and want to make the most powerful setups, as well as the casual players who just want to make their character feel a little more special, more like them, and want to create just something that they can truly connect with. Before, when you chose a class, you were agreeing to play that class despite its flaws. Some classes weren't very mobile, some didn't have the best healing, some were lacking burst and rather focusing in damage over time or pressure, but now you can take all of your favorite aspects of a class and mash them together with very few restrictions, and it can honestly be a very beautiful thing when it all comes together, creating one of the most player-focused experiences in the MMO genre. On top of that, thanks to us having the ability to use all of the best offensive skills and buffs now, regardless of class, we are seeing the time to kill in PvP go way down. This means that people that you used to have to focus on for 10 to 20 straight seconds of pressure to finish off, you can now drop in 1 to 2 seconds if you use your abilities properly, and that is awesome. At the same time, this is also one of the highest personal healing metas that I've played in a long time, which means that proper play is heavily rewarded. If you slip up, you die. But if you use your defenses correctly, and you survive burst damage with proper dodging and blocking, then you should really have no issues healing back up to full and getting back on the attack, which has made for some of the most fast-paced, frenetic action that I have experienced in Cyrodiil in years, and that's where the fun is, for me at least. That being said, these few points are also directly connected to So, after singing the praises of the update, I'm sure some of you may be wondering, well, what could possibly be wrong? What's the problem? It sounds great, right? Well, the biggest, most glaring issue goes hand in hand with that freedom that I mentioned before. That being the balance. With people being able to pick up only the best class skill lines, naturally, most people will take only the best class skill lines. This makes sense. Everyone likes to be strong, everyone likes to win. Totally normal. But with the best builds now being so good, it has really widened the gap between what is considered meta and what isn't. With the freedom to build your character however you want, it is much easier to unintentionally create what would be considered a bad build, especially when compared directly to what is considered the best. Now that doesn't mean that you can't make a good build without abusing the meta, but it does make it a little more difficult to create something unique that can compete with the meta, which means that naturally a lot of players will just play it safe and use what they know is best. Now granted, the game has always been like that, but the delta between the two has expanded so wide now that I fear that lots of newer, less experienced players are, as well as players that just can't be bothered to do all of the research to theory craft something, will just go for the meta setups out of fear of not being able to compete. Now, while this issue does exist in the PvP environment, the environment around PvP is a lot more reliant on your skill expression rather than just the raw numbers and efficiency. So a good or knowledgeable player that takes the time to create and master their own unique build with their own unique playstyle will still get a lot out of this update. However, when it comes to PvE, at least on the higher end, it's going to become even harder for players to play the way they want because a lot of groups are going to have certain expectations, and some of those expectations may be requiring numbers that only the very best setups can provide, which means that skill selections on the PvE side will become even more homogenized than even on the PvP side, which may push some players away from that crowd entirely. On top of all of this, there is the fact that there are several standout abilities whose power far outshines their contemporaries, and my personal fear is that given ZeniMax's track record in regards to balancing things, huge air quotes on balance, we may see some of our favorite staple skills be nerfed in hopes that people will be encouraged to pick up the less favorable skill lines, or at least currently less favorable. The best case scenario here is obviously to buff the weaker skill lines both through passives and their active abilities so that they are more likely to be chosen than the current ones, or than they currently are. Either for their utility, their passives, or otherwise offering a gameplay style that is unique from the current meta but still equally as efficient. But we'll see how they do with the upcoming patch notes, which might be out by the time this video is out, I don't know. The last big elephant in the room that I would like to address when it comes to the new update is ZeniMax's unparalleled ability to take the wind out of my sails every time I reinstall this game somehow, and somehow manage to fumble one of the easiest slam dunks they have had in a long time by removing scribing from being obtainable at all for a month after the update was made. Of course, a lot of people that have been consistently playing the game over the years already had access to this system and had been using it for a while. But if you're like me and had taken a long break from the game, you may have returned to test out the new subclassing update, only to learn that some of the game's most powerful, potent abilities were currently locked behind a hard time gate, waiting for ZeniMax to add it to the Crown Store standalone. I know several people who fall into this category, and I also know that several of them just dropped the game again entirely after that because they knew that no matter what they did, they would be at a disadvantage to other players, and they couldn't do anything about it until ZOS decided to let them. Now, obviously, that's going to be fixed here soon in a couple of days, but the fact that that managed to go unaccounted for by ZeniMax letting it release this way, despite it not making any sense at all, I find it honestly baffling. I feel that it lost them a good handful of the returning player base, especially those returning for the sake of PvP, and it could have been entirely avoided. And don't even get me started on the fact that they decided to do more of that vengeance nonsense while so many people were still getting back into the game. That's a whole different can of worms that maybe will open on another day, but not today. Today is not that day. But that's it. Those are my thoughts on the update, and despite my issues with it, I do find myself hopeful for the Elder Scrolls Online right now, because for the first time in a long time, I have been having fun with the game again, and I am interested to see where it goes from here. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the update. I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think it was a good update? A bad update? Do you think they'll fuck it up or improve it going forward? And most importantly, did you guys also get cucked out of scribing too, or was that just me? Because I'm still mad. Anyway, that's been all. Love you guys. Have a great night. Bye-bye. Mwah.